There's a lot of crazy shit happening right now. I told myself I wouldn't cuss in the first 10 minutes of every podcast, but my bad. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening. Like, you turn on the news, and now look, I read the news quite a bit for this podcast because it's like, okay, you know what? I want to try to stay up to date. One, just for my self knowledge. Two, to share it, joke about it, clown on it. That's the whole point of this whole thing, especially when we don't have main topics like we don't have one today. We're not going to talk about who's paying the bill. We're not going to talk about bachelor parties. All we have is just a list of nonsense. A list of nonsense, a little bit of Kanye West. And I understand some of y'all think he's nonsense. I don't. But we got a list. Starting with Tiffany Haddish going to Israel. Going to Jerusalem. Now, for those that don't know, Tiffany Haddish is a stand-up comedian. She's in a handful of movies like Girls Trip, Night School with Kevin Hart. She's big on the comedy scene. Me, myself, I've never been a big fan. I've never been a big fan of her comedy because it's like, I've never thought the material is original. I've never thought the material has been something like, oh, wow, like I don't think I could have thought of that. Oh, snap. Like I haven't heard any other comedian say something like that. I haven't seen this process of a joke. Now, what sells her act quite a bit is how she is. It's a lot of the theatrics behind her jokes. That's what kind of sells it. Now, if you depending on what neighborhood you grew up in, you've seen this plenty. Cat Williams talks about this quite a bit, where it's just like, who have you seen a comedy special from her? Like, yeah, she does a lot of stand-up gigs here. And now look, I am no one to be talking shit as someone that wants to be in stand-up, but has not scratched anywhere close to where she is or has been. But I'm still entitled to an opinion as far as I'm not the biggest fan. Now, recently, she posted a video on TikTok. I think she was probably Instagram Live or something, and she was talking about going to visit Jerusalem, a handful of other countries while she's over there. And she was kind of commenting on the matter. And she was like, you know what? I got to go see stuff for myself. I'm going to go find me a man. And this has always been her shtick. This has always been her shtick, where it's like, oh, I'm going to go find me a man over there. Like, I'm going to go find me a man over there. Oh, I need to find me a nice, rich white man. Hey, Brad Pitt, how's it going? That's always been the thing, right? So the whole Instagram Live commentary, I kind of get it, right? It's like she's just doing material. But how much of this is like, yo, bro, like this is still sensitive territory, right? Like, this is still stuff that you can't be joking about yet. And also, do you really need to go there to see what's happening for your own eyes? Literally in the video, hopefully I can attach it to the show notes, or maybe I can link it in the video itself. But she's basically saying like, oh, you know what? I got to go see for my own eyes. I don't trust everything they're saying on the news and all that stuff. And now look, I get it. I'm a skeptic myself. I don't believe the news. I don't believe anyone. I don't believe anything. If I hear anything at work, if I hear anything in real life, I don't believe it. Even if you tell me what time it is, I'm going to pull my phone out to see what time it is myself. I'm a skeptic. I'm a big skeptic. But when it comes to stuff like this, like during COVID, look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. You guys are going to think I'm crazy, but check it out. During COVID, when every day, they would give a death count. Oh, there's this many new cases of COVID and this many more people have died. I think my skepticism came from the number of new cases per day, because I had this belief that it was like, oh, you know what? I really think they're double counting. There's no way they're testing that much. There's no way this thing's spreading like that. And it was just me sitting inside my four walls by myself on probably month 2.5 at this point, losing my mind, right? I was painting walls. I was making TikToks, making brownies and banana bread. I was dumb. Okay. Because obviously, yes, COVID was that much of a super spreader. In addition to, a lot of people were dying from it. Now back to the war on hand, right? Am I someone that believes everything that is said in the news on the matter? No way, right? Like anything that comes out of Biden's mouth, anything that just comes from the news in general, anything that comes from Western news in general, I'm not going to really believe, because Yeah, it's just how I'm programmed, basically. Like I understand for those people that are like, you know what? No, like, why would media lie to us? You got to open your eyes at some point, right? Like the skepticism has helped me more than the being gullible side of things. Whatever the word is for it. I didn't do great on the SATs. But look, do I believe everything that's in the news about the war? No. Am I even getting close to the point of being like, you know what? I think I'm going to go over to Israel or Palestine and check it out for myself. No. No, 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 no. Like I don't understand it. I don't understand why she did this whole bit, or like why it's even a thing. Should we trade her for the hostages? Like I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Like no one visited Brittany Griner in prison, right? You got to believe the news at some point where it's like, hey, evil shit is happening. All these snaps and videos, people have what's it called? Instagram stories, TikTok, all of this stuff is being shared. You don't really need to go there and see it yourself. It's happening. It is happening. And now all these peace talks are happening. And look, we haven't talked about the war in a while. So to close out the Tiffany Haddish bit, I look, that's just what's happening in the world. But as far as the war, we haven't covered in a while because it's like it things just haven't gotten better or worse. It's just stayed very bad. Very bad, brutal, a lot of fatalities. A country that's getting literally suffocated, no water, food, all of this stuff happening. Hospitals, dying out from electricity, kids dying, women, men. It's just a horrible situation that I try not to talk about every week because it's like nothing's new on the matter. Now, I saw a story probably a week or two ago where Israel was threatening to start an attack on Rafah, which I believe is a city towards the southern part of the Gaza Strip, which would only make matters worse, more casualties, all this stuff. And so I went back into the news, try to research like what is actually going on. And these are the, Spark Notes version that I have to share with y'all. One, it is of Biden's belief. Now remember, I know I just said I'm skeptic about it all, but I'm just conveying information here. It is of Biden's belief that the war will halt by next Monday. This podcast comes out February 26th. So that is literally the Monday following this. There will be a ceasefire. What that means is a couple things. One, Hamas will, let's say, lower their demands. So they're going to be asking for less from Israel in regards to, hey, we want you guys to free these prisoners, all that kind of thing, those kinds of things. And then Israel wants, obviously, what they want and have kept saying, which is, we want you to free the prisoners, free the prisoners, free the prisoners, which Tiffany Haddish is about to be one of them. But free the prisoners. Now, I have a whole bit that I try to write about this, and I don't want to do it on the podcast before I maybe do it on stage, which is just like, what prisoners? Like, are there names? Are there it's just some kind of detail. There was a Cat Williams joke. I know I keep referencing Cat, but one of my favorite comedians, where back when we had the war on Iraq, back when George Bush was president, the war was happening, and Cat Williams had this joke about, what does the Iraqi uniform even look like? We not over there killing soldiers. We not over there killing, whatever militants. We're over there killing them. A genius joke. Tiffany Haddish could never, but a genius joke. And that is the same way I feel about what's happening in Palestine, where it's like, hey, we're going after Hamas. We're going after Hamas. Brother, who is Hamas? Now, look, I fully accept that I'm being quite ignorant on the matter. And I mean not to offend anyone. But that is what I'm saying and leaning towards when I'm saying that I am skeptic about the news in general. Am I going to go and try to see it for myself? No way. But as of now, I guess we will see by next Monday, by next podcast, will there be a ceasefire that comes to fruition? The next story that, it's like, you just start shaking your head. This is a very like, damn, this is really what's happening in the world kind of podcast. Like, it's comedy, but it's not. Alabama's ruling on IVF treatment. For those that don't know what IVF treatment is, in vitro fertilization. I cut myself off because it was like, bro, let me just look this up and read it verbatim, so I'm not trying to sound like some doctor. In vitro fertilization, IVF, is one of several techniques available to help people with fertility problems have a baby. During IVF, an egg is removed from the woman's ovaries and fertilized with sperm in a laboratory. The fertilized egg, called an embryo, is then returned to the woman's womb to grow and develop. Now, before this grow and develop phase, I believe you are able to freeze these embryos. You're able to freeze a certain amount. I mean, I'm not sure it's a certain amount, like you get capped at a certain limit, but from stories that I read of women that have gone through IVF, yes, I'm quite well versed on women's childbirth. It's only because I was so hand in hand with when my sister had a child. And that's the only reason. I'm not some weirdo that's looking this stuff up, but it's a major thing that happens. I feel like I'm actually more well versed on this matter than a lot of women, but it's only because I was so close to it. Literally the only reason. Going back to the Alabama ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that embryos, frozen embryos, are the legal equivalent of children. That's right, actual children. So what does that mean, right? Alabama currently has paused all IVF treatment. A lot of the labs, offices have just put a major halt on things. Basically because they don't want to get sued, right? They don't want to lose their license. They don't want to end up trying to help someone with IVF. The embryo fails. Did they just kill a child? What does that mean? I don't have to shine a lot of light on the fact that this is a very sensitive matter, right? People that want to grow a family have to go through this process sometimes. Yes, they can adopt, but what if they want to go through this? How do they start a family if they're having fertility issues? What do they do? It wasn't even too long ago when, Roe v. Wade got overturned, and holy shit. Now, let me make something clear. Let me make something very clear. I am pro whatever the hell you want to do with your body. Just straight up. Pro-life, pro-choice. I do not care. Whatever the lady wants to do with her body is your choice, bro. So I repeat, before y'all try to cancel me in 2024, I am pro whatever the heck you want to do with your body. Now, a couple things stem from this, right? I already mentioned the whole, a lot of clinics putting the pause on IVF treatment because there's going to be a lot of rules and regulations that coincide with this ruling, right? What does it actually mean? What is the downstream effects of these things? And will other states start to pick this up? Alabama also, Alabama needs no explanation for what Alabama is. Red to the bone. Pro-life, pro-life, pro-life. The Bible in every hotel bedroom you can find. They are not going to allow you to kill any type of child. But what I don't understand is like what is going on with this matter in particular? Like why do this? Right? Like at what point will there be a line drawn? The child is a child, right? The child is already born. The child is a child. It's a living creature. Now they're saying, before that, they were saying, not before that, they're also saying, the child, if you get pregnant, no matter the circumstance, is a child. You cannot abort it. That is bad. That's what they're saying. Now it's gotten to the point where it's like, hey, we created this embryo with sperm and egg, and that's also a child. This thing in the freezer, this little ice tray that I got in the freezer of embryos, those are children in there. Like, how ridiculous are we going to get? How ridiculous are we going to get? I went through the story, and a lot of people that have frozen embryos in Alabama are trying to figure out how to ship those to other facilities out of the state. How is that even possible? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a really easy process to it, but what a shitty problem to deal with. You literally have these embryos, and now they say, oh, these are going to be real children. These are real children here in the state of Alabama. Now what? What I expect to see now is this used as a big talking point in this year's election. Two, I think you'll see a lot of clinics start raising their insurance, like how much they're going to charge for IVF, because it's like we have to be able to cover our ass in case anything goes wrong. IVF isn't a cheap process. Couples break the bank, deplete all savings to try to go through this. And now for that ceiling to only rise, for you to enter the IVF space is now even harder to get to. How ridiculous. How actually ridiculous. And I don't really understand it, right? Like, I don't understand what's the freaking point of making this ruling. Like, no one was asking this question. No one was asking this question whether embryos are considered children. People were more so worried about, like, hey, there's a lot of guns coming into these middle schools and elementary schools. Should we do something about that? Nah, man, I think embryos are real kids. What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Look, I'm getting heated. I'm getting heated. My bad. But like I said, it's some wild shit. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand it at all. And I really hope, for the love of God, Texas does not even try to start this nonsense. And look, I may be completely wrong here. Maybe this leads to something good. I don't know what that looks like, so I can't really entertain it. I think Trump has already came out and said something about it. Like, obviously, while he's been kicking Nick Haley's ass all throughout these months, he's been asked about it. And be prepared. All he said was, we just want to make it easier for couples to have children, for couples to start a family. Pro family. I guess that's kind of a political answer, obviously. But I really don't know what comes out of this. I really don't know what's the downstream effect outside of what my assumptions are so far. On a much lighter note, for those that kept up, AT&T had an absolute power outage. I don't know whether it was all AT&T customers or just a handful, like a certain percentage, just had a complete outage. From the hours of 2 a.m. to 9 a.m., you just could not use your cell phone. Now, this is a terrifying thing. People don't realize how terrifying this is. There's a movie on Netflix called Leave the World Behind, a really good movie. And I haven't watched a lot of good movies in the past year. I've been watching movies. They've been really bad. This was a pretty good one, especially because it's so, I would say, different, right? You don't see end of the world movies that come from this stance. A little bit of a spoiler coming up, but basically what happens in the movie is a group of people get stuck in a house and everything starts going wrong, right? They go to a vacation home and everything starts going wrong. Cell service goes out. Roads are blocked off. Everything electronic is taken over. Everything that is electronic is taken over, such as Teslas, blocking the road. You basically become isolated. And when people are isolated for that long without any type of technology, they begin to just fight each other. So for a country to take over another country, instead of us going to war with them, let's just make them kill each other. That is the premise of the movie. Now, with this AT&T outage, and I'm pretty sure I saw a story somewhere last week about Russia wanting to nuke some satellite in space, but with that AT&T outage, we are very reliant. We are very reliant on our cell phones. Now, it's not a downfall, right? Like, I understand we could be more useful as a civilization. We should be able to get into our car and just go somewhere without staring at a map all day, without looking up, some Google stars for a restaurant. We should be able to just go out, right? Talk to your parents. Ask them how many times they got lost driving around the city and they had to pull over into a gas station, put some quarters into a phone, and then call someone and be like, yo, I just took a left at the Burger King. Now what am I supposed to do? We are very reliant on our phones. But that's the point, right? Like we were given this tool. Hey, this is going to make things easier. You should use this. And we did. Now, what that means is if it goes out, it creates a problem. The same way like the elevator. If the elevator goes out, a lot of people are going to be displeased. I live on a pretty high floor. If the elevator goes out, I'm going to be honest, I'm not leaving for the day. I'm going to cancel all types of plans. I'm not going up 18, 19 sets of stairs. That's just what it is. If everyone's car stopped working, are they going to start taking the bus? So we are a very reliant civilization on our phones. So the backlash has been crazy. I saw a bunch of funny TikToks about like people going to the AT&T store and being like, "Hey, like our service went out. Like, you got to do something." That kid is in high school. Leave the people there alone, man. Those kids are in high school making $7 an hour, dealing with problems that you want them to deal with that is way beyond them. I have this talk with my mom all the time. Honestly, like when we go to a Starbucks. Now, look, maybe it's just a generational thing. When we go to a Starbucks, she puts in her order, and there's one lady in the back busting her ass. And my mom gets, a little bit antsy, and she's like, "Hey, like I put this order and it's been, 7 minutes. Like, what's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, like I'm working on it. Oh, it's the next up, And my mom starts getting angry, and it's like, "Yo, what that 19-year-old child behind the counter is working her ass off." Now I understand if you get mad at like sales associates, shitty sales associates. As someone that was a good sales associate, in my opinion, I get pretty annoyed. Like if I go to a Foot Locker and I got a shoe in my hand and I'm like waiting for someone to come around and ask me if I want a size, and they're all just talking, texting, making, jokes to each other, flirting, try to hook up with each other. This is what happens. I'm telling you. Then I get upset. Then I'm just like, "Bro, come do your job, Come do your job. We're over here having conversations about the minimum wage, and you over here doing that. Come over here and help me." So for stuff like that, yes, I understand. Getting upset, reasonable, justifiable, whatever. But for this AT&T, like leave these sales associates alone. They don't know what's going on. Yes, obviously, if they're not working, try to get them to, get their ass up. You're only helping them. Don't call the manager. You don't need to do all that. Just give them a little, "Hey, yo, come on, man. Help me out." But as far as this AT&T thing goes, it is pretty scary. Like how fast, just like that, it could all go away. I won't bore you with the long ad read this week, but don't forget to shop Express Men. I got the link in the bio, link in my Instagram bio, I think also. The link is everywhere. So if you're shopping Express, or if you need new clothes, or if you need to get your guys some new clothes, don't forget to shop that link. Now, we haven't talked music here in a while. I think the last time I mentioned music was when Chris Brown dropped the 11:11 album back in November. And even then, we didn't do a full album deep dive, whatever. But as of recent, another one of my favorite artists dropped an album, and that is Kanye West. He dropped this collab album with Ty Dolla $ign named Vultures 1. So looking at this album, I will say I think I liked it. The album is about 16 songs long. The first 3 to 4 songs I wasn't the biggest fan of. Look, any artist, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not looking forward to hearing their kid on tracks. I understand why they do it, the art behind it, and it's just like a fun thing for them to have. But personally, as the listener, I'm good without it. My favorite track on the album was "Do It." I think either "Do It" or "Carnival," but "Carnival" is like the mainstream one. "Do It" was basically a remake. I don't know. They sampled "Back That Ass Up" by Juvenile, and I don't know whether it's just because I've been on a big Juvenile train lately, but this was my favorite song. Overall, I think people are not going to like the album though. Why do I say that? I think it it's just what it is. Like the same way people didn't like Donda. If you go back to and listen to Donda, it's a really good album. It is really good. People were comparing that to Certified Lover Boy because I think they both came out at the same time, and not even close. Like the production value on Kanye West albums is next level. Him as a rapper, I understand. You may not be the biggest fan. But as far as an artist, as far as a producer goes, how you it's hard to compete with this dude. I understand people have their personal feelings about Kanye West and all that stuff, but just put that to the side, man. Put that to the side for 1 second. It's not like he's out here peeing on people and stuff like that. Just relax for a second. This guy is one of the greatest artists of our generation. Just straight up. Taylor Swift, Drake. Yes, I said Taylor Swift. Kanye's in this conversation. Kanye, as far as a producer, rapper, entertainer, artist, he's in that conversation. Look at what he's done with the Yeezys. You see those people rocking that stuff everywhere. A $300 shoe that people resell for like $1,200. And he's not even part of Adidas, and those things are still selling. It's like that. He did this with Nike, he did this with Adidas, and now he's just doing it by himself. With I think he did Yeezy.com. He had a Super Bowl ad for it. He's selling everything for $20. He's trying to enter that space, and he's trying to grow in that space. But he obviously, what we're focusing on here is the music talent. And I think what also happens is when you get to a certain age, old head coming out, but when you get to a certain age, you're not really experiencing albums. You got to experience this stuff. Whether you go to a concert, whether you just go for a long drive, whether you get high, drink, do something. Do something where you're actually experiencing the music. Let's say you go out to clubs, right? The way you used to discover music. When you go out, oh shit, they playing All Me by Drake. Oh, this thing smacks. Oh, Drake's the greatest. This album's amazing. That was experiencing music. When you were in college and you would hear stuff at pre-parties, you go for drives, you go on these dates, you listen to these things while you're pre-game and all that stuff. That was experiencing music. Now people just listen to it while they're cleaning the house, doing homework, doing regular work, sorry. Just doing these small tasks. And it's like, you gotta experience it. You gotta just do something. Just don't be in a sober mindset. I'm not promoting anything, bad here, but I'm just saying it's like these albums take time to grow. I didn't like Donda when it first came out. I was of the same belief as the majority, where it's like, this album ain't that great. I don't really like this too much. The same way when I went through this album for the first time through, I was like, it's all right. And then you listen to it a couple more times and it's like, okay, and maybe that's, a thing for all music. Maybe if I listen to Taylor Swift a little bit more, I'll grow to like it. But personally, I just think we judge albums way too fast and we don't give them like an actual shot. Because by the time we listen to it 2 times and we're like, whatever, you never come back to it. So I recommend everyone listen to Vultures. Let me know what you think, whether you like it, don't like it, or your thoughts on, just music ingestion in general. Would love to hear it. And now let's talk about some taxes. I'm going to keep this super short because I'm not trying to turn this into a financial podcast, but tax season is here 100%, right? Like, I think the early deadline is February, the end of February, and then the official deadline being that April 15th date. I would be remiss if I didn't say NerdWallet now has a tax tool. Yes, I was paid to say this, but NerdWallet now has a tax tool. So you guys should definitely try that out. Personally, I use TurboTax, but don't tell Isha this. I use TurboTax every single year. But like I said, don't tell her that. Now, a couple tips that I have, and like I said, I'm going to keep this short. And a lot of these tips is like, it won't even help you this year because you're filing for the previous year. But in the upcoming year, the only tips I can give you is one, like pay your taxes, right? You don't want to end up filing your tax and you're like, oh shit, I owe $6,000. So pay your taxes. Have a decent rate. 2, open an HSA and contribute the max amount to it. Don't do no FSA, just do an HSA. 3, if you buy property or any of that shit, make sure you write all this stuff off. You can even write off registering a car. And 4, even if you donate shit to like Goodwill and stuff, keep track of all this stuff. Keep track of everything. You got to play the tax game. You got to play the tax game. I'm not saying lie on your taxes, but you got to play the game. Like, there's a lot of loopholes that you'll be surprised that you don't know. Whether you run a small business, I'm writing half of this shit off. This microphone, this light, maybe the laptop, the water bottle. All of this stuff is a business expense. It's a business, right? Does it make a lot of money? Not really. Some of the money comes from Express, but like I said, you can write off a lot of these things. Let's say you have a small business, right? Like, let's say you do social media content, right? Like, you're posting regularly about cooking videos, or you write books and you sell poems, right? You have to have some type of revenue to show that it's like, okay, this is a legit business. But like, you can write all this stuff off. And the one thing I just want to urge you, and like I said, I'm not going to harp too long about it, but just play the game. Play the game. Look up the loopholes. Ask some friends about some stuff. My friends listening to this, feel free to text me. I'll help you with your taxes. Now, first, I got to do my own, but I'll help you. But play the game. Play the game. A short episode, but I think in this next week I'll have a little bit more going on. I'm trying to go to the LA Food and Wine Festival, but that shit's like $200, $250 a day. So looking people to go with, but looking for people to go with, but it might be a little solo adventure. Maybe make some content out of it. It's tough to justify these things, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, I think it'll be an experience, but how many of those dishes will actually be worth it for $250? How much will I actually enjoy it? So I got that going on. I just finally found a basketball court near here. A resident in the building suggested this center, and finally found that stuff. So I'm trying to get involved there. Got some friends coming in town, and with that all being said, don't forget to shop Express Men. I appreciate you guys for listening. Sorry for the shorter episode. I will see you guys next week, and goodbye.